Betrayal doesn't arrive screaming. It doesn't knock things over or announce itself in public meetings. Most of the time, it comes quietly wrapped in confidence, disguised as routine, delivered by someone who already knows where everything is kept. My name is Lily. For almost 8 years, I ran a company with my business partner, Shin. We built it from the ground up, no investors at the start, no safety net, no shortcuts. Just contracts, discipline, and trust reinforced by structure. From the beginning, our roles were clear. Shin was the face, the closer, the one who made clients feel important. I was the backbone. Operations, contracts, compliance, and risk. People said we balanced each other. What they didn't see was that balance only works when both sides respect the weight. By year 8, the company was strong. Not flashy, but valuable. Reliable cash flow, serious clients, and most importantly, healthy reserves. The kind of reserves that protect a business when markets shift or deals collapse. That's when Shin started acting differently. Not suddenly. Not obviously. He stopped copying me on certain emails. He shortened conversations that used to be detailed. He began making small decisions without looping me in, nothing illegal, nothing dramatic. Just enough to test whether I was paying attention. I was. But I didn't react. Experience had taught me something important. People who plan to cross a line often check first to see if anyone will stop them. One night, long after the office had emptied, I stayed back to finish a routine internal review. Not because I suspected anything, because I always did my reviews myself. That's when I saw it. A scheduled internal transfer. Amount: $3.8 million. I stared at the number longer than I should have. It wasn't payroll. It wasn't reinvestment. It wasn't vendor-related. It was almost our entire unrestricted reserve. I opened the details. The destination account wasn't a company entity. It was a newly created holding company, registered just a few months earlier. Owned by Shin. My first reaction wasn't anger. It was stillness. Under the description, one line stood out. Partner compensation adjustment. Consent assumed. Assumed. That word did more damage than any confession ever could. This wasn't confusion. It wasn't a mistake. It was a decision already made, one that relied on me staying quiet. My phone buzzed. A message from Shin. Big moves this week. We're finally getting what we deserve. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened the founding agreement, the document Shin used to call legal overkill. Years earlier, when I insisted on drafting it carefully, he'd laughed and told me I worried too much. I scrolled slowly. Clause after clause passed by. Then I found it. The clause I had written after watching another company collapse because one partner thought access meant ownership. It was simple, clear, unforgiving. Any transfer of company reserves above a defined threshold required explicit written consent from both partners. Any attempt to bypass that requirement triggered automatic consequences, regardless of intent. I read it twice, then a third time. My breathing slowed. I closed the document and shut down my computer. That night, I didn't confront Shin. I didn't cancel the transfer. I didn't warn anyone. Instead, I made 2 quiet calls. The first was to Lila, the most disciplined person in our finance department. I need full access logs related to reserve movement, I told her. Discreetly. She didn't ask why. The second call was to Zunri, our risk analyst. If a partner initiates a unilateral transfer of reserves, I asked, what matters more, amount or intent? She paused before answering. Intent, she said. Because intent is what removes deniability. I thanked her and hung up. The next morning, Shin walked into the office relaxed, confident, already talking about future plans like the outcome was guaranteed. He joked with staff, made promises, acted like the money was already his. You look tired, he said when he saw me. Long night, I replied. He smiled. That usually means progress. He had no idea that the progress he was celebrating was already locked into a system that didn't care about confidence or charm. He thought he was preparing to take $3.8 million. What he didn't realize was that by scheduling that transfer, he had already activated something irreversible. And I wasn't going to stop him. Because sometimes the cleanest way to end a betrayal is to let it finish exposing itself. The hardest part wasn't watching Shin prepare to take the money. It was pretending I didn't see it. For the next 2 days, I became exactly the version of myself he expected: focused, distracted, cooperative. I stopped questioning timelines. I approved routine expenses without comment. I let him lead conversations he used to share with me. Each time I stayed silent, his confidence grew. Confidence has a way of making people careless. By Wednesday evening, Lila sent me the access logs. They were clean, precise, and devastating. Every system entry showed the same story: Shin hadn't acted suddenly. He had tested the waters for weeks. Small permissions here, wording changes there, gradual reclassification of funds from company reserves to partner-related allocations. He wasn't improvising. He was rehearsing. Late that night, Zunri called me back. I ran the scenario multiple ways, she said. There's no reasonable interpretation where this is accidental. What happens after the clause triggers? I asked. She didn't answer right away. After that, she said carefully, everything becomes procedural. No arguments. No intent-based defense. The agreement takes over. That was exactly what I needed to hear. Thursday arrived quietly. The office felt normal: emails, meetings, laughter near the break room. No one sensed that the company was standing on a fault line, waiting for one decision to shift everything. Shin was unusually relaxed. Tonight's the last cleanup, he said casually while passing my desk. After that, things get simple. I nodded. Good. I left the office early that evening on purpose. Shin needed to believe there were no eyes on him. At 8:04 p.m., my phone vibrated. Transfer initiated. $3,800,000. I stared at the screen without reacting. At 8:09 p.m., a message came in from Shin. All done. Smooth execution. I archived it. At 8:12 p.m., the funds landed in the temporary holding account. And then, quietly, invisibly, the system did exactly what it had been designed to do. The clause activated. No alarms. No notifications to Shin. Just a locked internal flag that could not be undone without formal review. By the time Shin realized something was wrong, it was already too late. Friday morning, he arrived early, energized. He didn't notice the slight hesitation when his access card scanned at the door. He didn't notice that certain dashboards no longer loaded. At 9:45 a.m., I asked him to step into the conference room. He walked in smiling. So, he said, leaning back in his chair, what's next? I placed a folder on the table between us. Read, I said. His smile faded as he flipped through the pages. Logs. Authorization trails. Timestamped messages. Internal classifications, his language, his timing, his actions. This is excessive, he said finally. You're treating this like a crime. I'm treating it like a breach, I replied. He leaned forward. Lily, this was compensation. We both know I've earned it. You don't earn reserves, I said calmly. You protect them. His jaw tightened. You could have stopped it. Yes, I said. I could have. Then why didn't you? Because stopping him would have left room for excuses. Letting him finish removed them all. Instead of answering, I slid one last page toward him. The clause. His signature sat at the bottom, unmistakable. For the first time since I'd known him, Shin went quiet. What happens now? He asked. Now, I said, the agreement takes control. That afternoon, formal notices went out. Ownership rights suspended. System access restricted. Mandatory arbitration triggered. There was no shouting. No confrontation in the hallway. Shin packed his bag slowly, eyes fixed on the floor, still trying to process how a decision he'd made so confidently had turned against him so completely. As he walked out, he looked back at me once. You planned this, he said. No, I replied. I prepared for it. The difference mattered. Arbitration doesn't look like revenge. There are no raised voices, no dramatic accusations, no sudden confessions. It happens in quiet rooms, behind closed doors, where facts matter more than feelings and signatures matter more than stories. Shin arrived to the first session looking composed. He wore the same confidence he'd relied on for years, the same tone he used with clients when he wanted to sound reasonable. It didn't help him. The panel didn't care how persuasive he sounded. They cared about one thing: what the agreement said and what he had done. Lila testified first. She didn't speculate. She didn't editorialize. She walked them through the logs, timestamps, access levels, approval trails. She showed how Shin had gradually adjusted classifications, how he had tested limits before executing the full transfer. This wasn't a single action, she said calmly. It was a pattern. Then Zunri spoke. She explained intent. Not emotionally. Structurally. She explained how the timing, wording, and sequencing of Shin's actions removed any plausible claim of misunderstanding. How his decisions aligned too cleanly to be accidental. How the agreement had been designed specifically to prevent this kind of behavior. When it was my turn, I didn't attack Shin. I didn't describe how betrayed I felt. I didn't talk about trust. I talked about responsibility. The clause exists, I said, because businesses fail when power goes unchecked. It doesn't exist to punish. It exists to protect. And it applies to everyone, especially the people who think it won't. Shin spoke last. He said he felt sidelined. He said he felt entitled. He said the money was deserved. He never denied the transfer. That was the moment the room changed. The panel adjourned briefly. When they returned, their decision was already written. Shin had violated the agreement. The violation was intentional. The consequences were automatic. His partnership stake was forfeited in full. No buyout. No delayed compensation. No future claim against the company. The $3.8 million was returned to company reserves within hours. Shin didn't argue when the ruling was read. He just sat there, staring at the table, like he was finally seeing the structure he'd ignored all along. He left the building that day without speaking to anyone. No escort. No announcement. Just a door closing quietly behind him. In the weeks that followed, the company stabilized faster than I expected. Clients didn't leave. Staff didn't panic. If anything, morale improved. There was clarity again. Clean lines. Defined authority. The acquisition discussions resumed shortly after. This time, the tone was different. The investors asked detailed questions about governance. About safeguards. About decision-making authority. I answered all of them. They liked the answers. The deal closed. The company stayed intact. Stronger. More disciplined. As for Shin, his presence disappeared slowly. Calls stopped coming in. Meetings didn't materialize. His name stopped opening doors. Not because I destroyed him. Because the system no longer protected him. People sometimes ask me how I stayed so calm through all of it. The truth is simple. I didn't wait for betrayal to teach me a lesson. I prepared for it before it ever happened. Shin thought confidence would protect him. He thought access meant ownership. He thought silence meant ignorance. He was wrong on all three. He thought he'd steal $3.8 million. One clause shut him down. And once it did, there was nothing left for him to argue with.